Well, welcome to Super Bowl Sunday. Finally got here. It's going to be a game. Be about 25,000 people at the game, and the usual hundreds of millions of people, or billion people, whatever it actually is, watching the game across the world. We'll be doing it here. Um, it's been a kind of crazy week. We've got that whack job Green in the Congress. The Republicans seem to be supporting her, and that makes no sense. I mean, she did threaten to lynch some Democrats. Thought that would be a good idea. Um, I can't. I don't get into that where I say, well, maybe we should do her. No, that's not. That doesn't accomplish anything as far as I'm concerned. It just gives her a platform to criticize me, other than for what something that other than what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is she's a complete asshole. I don't know how she got in, but I'll tell you what, it's giving credence to the uh, old cliches about the hillbillies of the South. If you lived in Georgia, you all be stupid. It's just making that state and those people down there who happen to be good people. I know people that live there. Friends of mine lived there, moved there. It's a lovely state. But when you start seeing people like that representing the state in a rather important role, as a congresswoman from a certain district, I mean, it says a lot. It kind of, to me, it kind of really demeans those people. They're nothing. They're backwoods people. Or it's the old cartoons about the hillbillies and whatnot. Running stills and smoking whatever. It's kind of sad. I don't. I think it's very sad, to be honest with you. I mean, you take some good people down there and you make them look stupid. But then you talk to those people, you say, "Oh no, that's just, yeah, we believe that. We believe that there's a deep state." Well, there's always been rumors of a deep state, and I said this before. The Masons and Knights of Columbus and everything else. That's all been going on for hundreds of, I guess, thousands of years. I don't really know how far back that went. I probably do know. I just can't remember. The you know is it possible? Of course it's possible, but that's one thing to say. You believe that there's a deep state. And you try to investigate it, and you can't prove it. Just like Trump can't prove he won the election, that there was voter fraud. I mean, you have, I don't know how many states actually investigated it. How many local and federal courts have said there is no evidence to prove this. He's going to try again this week with bringing it up in his impeachment trial, which I think, I have to say, is probably a waste of time and money, because I don't see him being convicted that way. Uh, I think that there has to be ways that he can be tried in civil court, which of course he'll turn into a monkey show, with his defense of he won the election, and it was stolen from him. Um, but I think if you get the right judges, people that are honest and credible, and jurors that uh, are open-minded, that you can get a conviction on him. I think he would. I think I'm surprised people haven't sued him for wrongful death for the way he handled the COVID vaccine problems and everything. I mean, he just sat there and basically he ignored it, or made some ridiculous statements. That actually, if people did what he said to do, were harmed. Could have died from what he was saying, and maybe some of them did, and maybe they should sue. I mean, I find it difficult that people sit there and they say to me, "Well, he was right." Right about what? You know, um, he's a racist. He's a white supremacist. And I think, when it comes to certain things, I think most everybody is a racist. Look, I always bring this up. Look at the American Indian and what's been done to the American Indian. We have gone after countries. We have gone into countries. Look what we did in Germany with Hitler killing Jews. Yet, when we went out and annihilated peoples, I mean, some of those tribes don't exist, and a couple of those tribes don't exist. The ones on the East Coast and whatnot, they were killed by I guess you would call them Europeans at the time, because we weren't a country at the time. But look at the way they live now. 100 and 200 years, they've lived out on reservations and whatnot, and you would think that there'd be millions of them. I mean, their lives are supposed to be better now and whatnot, and it's not that way. They die of disease. They're getting the Navajo natives reservation is getting destroyed by COVID-19. They're not educated. They don't have the opportunities that you and I have, and they should have more opportunities than you and I have, because they're the Native American. They're the natives of this country. They're the ones that were here first. That's why they call themselves the first people. So I mean, they're very badly treated. Black people, were they badly treated during the slave times? Yes. I remember a lawsuit in Stanford, one of the California schools, where a white person sued the school for the affirmative action policy, because he believed that he wasn't given a fair chance to get a scholarship or admission. I forget what, a scholarship or admission to a college, because they gave it to a black person first because of affirmative action. And that was called reverse discrimination. That was a big thing back in I guess this started in the 70s sometime, and that was a big thing, and that brought about, calls for segregation and whatnot. Remember, it hasn't been that long. They're still busing kids in Boston, and that caused riots. So when you think they put that thing, they don't cover it, they don't put it in the news anymore. So you sit back and say, oh, everything's cool. No, it's not. Never has been. Newark has got two levels of people in it. Poor people and affluent people. And if a black person becomes affluent, number one, if he lives in Newark, he lives in a mansion in Newark. That's if he stays in Newark. White people made a lot of money in Newark prior to the riots, and they bailed and they moved to Livingston and Parsippany and all the suburbs of Morris County and whatnot, so that there are no good businesses and whatnot left in Newark. All you have to do is be my age and remember walking down Broad Street and seeing Kresge's and Kress and Bamberger's and all the other big stores that were down there at the time. If you wanted to buy a TV, you went to Newark. Yeah, sure, they had the Crazy Eddies and everything else down there, the real big discount places, but that's where you went if you wanted something nice. You didn't go to it was a little bit more expensive, but you had supposedly better selections and whatnot, and you went there. Then after the riots, it all disappeared. You go down Broad Street now, and now I haven't been in Newark in about at least 10, 12 years. So I don't know if anything's been done to Broad Street, but I remember where I believe it was Central Avenue ran into Broad Street. You would go around the corner, and where Kresge's was a beat up, shot up church that changed every week. And everybody says that the white people persecuted and took advantage of the black people. Black people took advantage of themselves. There's an example that I remember from we gotta go black and white TV days. Channel 13 used to have a show on called the Reverend Ike, and he would preach from this. I don't know whether he was Baptist or what he was, something like that. I don't want to say the wrong thing to hurt people that believed him, but he would show up at the studio or the church or whatever where he was going to do this preaching from, and he'd show up in a big black Cadillac limousine, which nobody in Newark drove. Uh, but he'd show up and he'd get out and he'd have these rings on his hand, and they spelled out in diamonds, Ike, Ike. I mean, come on. They talk about the evangelists, and they're just as bad. I mean, the white evangelists take advantage of the stupidity of white people that believe that they believe what this guy says, which is a Christian doctrine. And if he says this, and you do what he says, and you leave your life good like that, you're going to be rich and famous. You know, it's a little difficult to become rich and famous when you have to give all this money to him, and he builds this mansion, and he's living like a god. It's no different in the real religions. I don't want to say that some people believe that's a real religion, and I won't demean it by saying it isn't, but I do say that if you're the main religions like Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, even Islam, these people live lives that the average person in the city can't live. And why? They don't work. They work. They say, man, they don't work the way you and I work. They're not putting in 80 hours of hard labor for a salary. They're fed they don't pay for their food. They get the money from the church. It's like, I worked for a Catholic school, okay, which had a Montessori school, and they would go out to pick up food supplies for the kids, who were paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $9,000. I don't know whether that was a half year or full year to attend this school, being taught by nuns who, in some lay teachers, but mostly 90% of it, better than 95% of it was done by nuns who, not all of them had a great attitude. Some of them were vicious, which is, my experience with them in school. But anyhow, and where did they get their food? They got their food from food banks. In other words, you were getting day-old bread that was frozen, hot dog rolls that were past the date on it, expired, meat, hot dogs, ham, everything, turkeys, chicken, everything that was expired. But yet, that's the sell-by dates were expired. So that's what they were being given to eat, and you're paying $8,000 or $9,000 a year. Where's the rest of this money going? Well, first of all, the nuns in the convent that they had there, a convent, or Mother Superior's house, whatever you want to call it, were getting standing rib roasts, turkey whenever they wanted it, big roasts of turkey and everything. They lived good, and their waistlines showed that they lived good. Now, not all of them were nasty like that. That some of them realized that was wrong, but they worked. They had to survive, so they did what they did, and they were thankful to the church for getting them out of the Philippines or India, wherever they came from. But what I found out just before they fired me, and they fired me for voicing an opinion, the Mother Superior wanted to send as much money as possible to Rome, so that she could maybe be buried in Rome or something like that. It's what they do. The more money they send to Rome, the better off, the better position they have within the church, and the possibility of getting a funeral mass or something from them, or whatever, wedding mass for their family, some member of their family, visitations, being able to send their lay family to visit the Pope, and get into the Vatican and all that. That's all based upon contributions to the main church. That's a very wealthy organization. But anyhow, so we have this crazy person who's doing the deep state thing, and we have other people around, various religions that are just as whacked out, and I'm not so sure that Biden can straighten this whole mess out. I think he may be a little bit too intent upon getting rid of the Trumpisms and Trump and bringing it back to what they consider to be normal. He wanted a $15 an hour minimum wage. But one thing I know about, when the minimum wage goes up, prices go up. and it balances itself out. And people say, "Oh, no, 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 no." Yes, it does. It balances itself out. Uh, I run a business, okay? Let's say, and I have people working for me, and I'm paying them $10 an hour, and I'm charging you so that I make a reason, so that I make a living. I'm charging you a specific fee. Okay, now all of a sudden you're raising my labor costs up to $15 an hour, which means if I take a 2-hour job that was costing me 20, it's now costing me 30. I'm not going to settle for less profit. I'm going to raise the rate. Now, am I going to raise it all the way up at the first right away? No, I'll do it gradually until I start making the same money. Within a year and a half to 2 years, I'll be making the same money I was. New customers are going to pay a much higher rate. And, I'll raise your rates a little bit to cover my expenses, but my new customers are going to pay the full addition of the $5 more an hour. They're going to be paid. They're going to be charged that. If I charge you $80 for a 1-hour job, I'm going to charge you $85 an hour. I'm going to make my money back. I'm not going to lose any money. That's business. They're not going to do that. They don't lose money. They're not in the business of making. That's not their job to lose money. Their job's to make money. So a $15 an hour minimum wage isn't going to help a lot of people. If you run a business like a small supermarket, or a delicate, you run a deli, okay? You got it's not a family-run operation, so this you have to hire people, and you got 3 or 4 people working for you, and you're making a good money, and all of a sudden your payroll goes up by $20 an hour, okay? Your expenses increase tremendously because you have additional insurance rates are going to go up. Everything's going to go up. They're going to pass that on to you, so that within 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, we're back where we started from. The only way you stop that is to educate people so that they can obtain a better job, that they get out of the minimum wage bracket altogether and they go get a better job. If you do that, that's the way you solve the poverty problem in this country. Not by constantly giving more money, as pay. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying that it's not the right thing to do. I'm just saying this is what it's going to cost you in the long run. It's going to cost you money, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's economics. That's the way they do things. They're not. I wouldn't run a business and lose money, and I don't think anybody else would. And I have run a business, and so I would not do it to lose money. First of all, I didn't have to worry about minimum wage because I was paying people above the minimum wage at the time. So, let's see, what else can I talk about today? You got the football game coming up, millionaire versus millionaire. That's another thing. You go read my blog, Founder's Great Adventure. Look it up, read it. That's all about the disparity in the income in that game. I mean, those guys are going to make more playing for 3 hours than I made in the last year I worked, and I ran that business. All right, I have to go. You all take care of yourselves, okay? And we'll talk again soon. Probably tomorrow after the game. Maybe we'll go over the game tomorrow. All right, ciao.